There's never an emergency to murder a child.
There's never any medically necessary reason for abortion. That's just blatantly wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
There's literally
I'm happy to get you guys information.
But do you not think that it exists? Do you think it's just...
I think women, can die of childbirth for sure. I totally agree with that.
Do you not think that an abortion would save that mother's life?
I do not agree with that.
A wife's primary duty is to serve her husband.
I believe that as just a person, as a woman in general, my first priority is to God and being obedient to Him. But being a wife, I believe being a submissive wife and loving your husband as we have been asked to by God, I believe that that's the foundational purpose of being a wife and then in turn leading your children. When I first got married at 18. I feel like in my role as a wife, I have learned that in order for me to be a good mother, in order for me to be good in our marriage, I am putting him first and I am serving him, and that's my priority.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I got married at 21 years old. I was never really like the, independent woman. I grew up with a single mother. And when I first met my husband, we were 14 years old, and instantly I was like, this is the man that I want to marry. And it really made me dive into being a godly wife. So you touched on that a little bit, and I 100% agree that when you're serving your husband, you have to also serve God. And if you do not have that kind of relationship with your husband that you do with God, then it's going to kind of lead down the path of like, I'm me and I care about myself and he's going to care about himself instead of making those sacrifices for each other. So I definitely, for myself, I try to put him above all. Obviously, I do take care of myself. It's not like I'm just like, oh yeah, like she can just go down the drain. It's a give and take. So I fully am there for my husband, and whatever he needs me to do is something that I look forward to doing for him, because whatever you give, you will receive. So I try to be the best wife that I can be to him so that he can be the best husband that he can be to me. Yeah.
Can I have the disagreeer step forward?
So does it go both ways? Is it just I should serve my husband, not my husband should serve me as well?
So in our view, and as I believe Christians should have that view, is your husband is supposed to love you as Christ loved the church. And that actually is a bigger task than wives submit to your husband. So in turn, I'm submitting to him, but he is actually supposed to be obedient to God, which means he's supposed to love me as much. And if he loves me as much as Christ loves the church, then it's going to be a mutual relationship. We're going to have mutual conversations, mutual decisions be made. It's not that he's ruling over me, he's telling me what to do and taking charge of everything. It's that he loves me enough to care for me as he should, I think as any husband should for his wife.
Yeah, 100%. I think that a big misconception with submitting to your husband is that I submit to him and he has the final say and he does whatever he wants and I don't have a say. It's more of like, okay, I'm gonna come to you with my opinions and these are the ideas that I have, and at the end of the day, he will decide on the ideas, but I do have that say. I can go to him and I say, okay, well, I think that we should move to Thailand. And he's gonna decide if that's a good idea for us or not. It's not like he comes in the house and he's like, yeah, we're moving, let's go, pack up
Why
your
does
stuff.
he get to decide?
That's what I was wondering.
Because leadership is a service, so the service he provides is his leadership, and if you've ever been in a leadership position, then you'll know that. It's actually an immense weight to carry, to lead people, and just carry that final responsibility. And as a servant leader, you have their best in mind when you are leading people. So that's the service that he provides.
Is there
and
a
it's
line?
actually, well, I guess that's a great question. It depends on how you would define submission, being a Tradwife. So as a Christian, I would say there's definitely a line. My first priority is to God, and my husband can't cause me to do anything that would jeopardize that, and he can't treat me in a way that's dishonorable or not generous. So
I think in my partnership with my husband, it really does feel like a partnership. And so I disagree in the sense that for us, major life decisions, even day-to-day decisions, there is negotiation between the two of us. Oftentimes, I will win most negotiations. He wins sometimes as well. But there is a foundation of trust, communication, leadership. But I think for us, our marriage functions more like a partnership where, I guess mutual trust and negotiation comes into play a lot more than, we're doing this and that's how we're doing it. So,
and do you guys believe that the man or the husband should be a leader just because he is the male, or is it because he displays certain leadership qualities? Could it be the other way around if the woman was somebody who would fit better into the role of a leader?
No, it's built in. It's like baked in biology. So hormonally, men's.
No, I don't agree with that.
How so?
Sure, you can say that there are biological difference between a man and a woman, but that doesn't make, I get so upset because why are men inherently born deserving respect, but we have to earn all of our respect, right? There's no biology that says
because
you
of
deserve.
feminism. We have to earn it because of feminism, where we made ourselves compete with men rather than relaxing into our feminine maternal role,
Feminism
where we
isn't
don't have
competing
to
with men.
earn.
Yeah, what do you think feminism is? I'm just curious.
Well, I would go by the definitions of the first wave feminist who sought to overthrow the family. And
That's what they sought to do.
I don't think that's
so
true.
who would you say were like the first wave?
Well, feminism, the typical definition is social, political, and economic equality between the sexes. I don't think anything in that definition is saying we should overthrow the family or that we don't believe in loving marriages or partnerships. But when you say these biological differences between men and women make men better suited to be a leader, which ones? And
Okay.
where's like your basis for that? Like what skills?
Men are larger, they're stronger. Hormonally, men produce more vasopressin, which is the hormone that makes them better protectors and providers. They're able to just respond better to threats, whereas women produce more oxytocin. We're smaller, we're more vulnerable, we're the fairer sex. The oxytocin is a trust and bonding hormone that we're supposed to use to take care of those weaker than us, like children, like the sick, the poor, the elderly. When we channel that, the way that God made us, then those people are actually under our authority as women. We have the responsibility to care for them, just like men have the responsibility to use their strength to care for us.
I think what's standing out to me is that these biological differences that you're noting is actually something that feminism is seeking to actually support. Because true feminism at its core is about the safety and equity for women in society. So that women can it's not about dismantling the family, it's about creating agency for women to choose their lives, not based on whatever your personal beliefs are or the beliefs that are outlined by society, but whatever path that they have chosen for themselves. That's at the true core of feminism. Yeah. It's not about women being better or stronger or the same as men. It's about women being safe in this world, in a world where the patriarchy threatens women's safety and agency.
Right. Can I ask how are you threatened?
How am I threatened?
Yeah.
So I'll tie it back to the biological differences that you noted. There's a reality that women face, both biologically, which we all can, all of us here can understand and empathize with, but also just like within society, there's a pretty unequal steep, right? And so for the role that men occupy, just in general in society, and the freedom that men are able to maneuver through society with, that to me is why feminism is so necessary, to open paths for women who might otherwise not be able to. Recently in Iran, I'll give you an example. Recently in Iran, there was a woman who was protesting because there was a strict dress code policy, and she walked through the streets in her protest within her underwear. It was a very brave, courageous act that is of true feminism. And what happened? She was disappeared. So if you look at the way that society treats women's bodies versus men's bodies, that inherent difference, it creates violence that threatens us at our core. And so by feeling as though we need to submit ourselves to men, to me that sounds like a defense mechanism. And what stands out when I'm listening to you all speak, and if you find empowerment through submitting to your husband, that's fine. But for me personally, my brand of feminism is that I think that if a woman finds empowerment through that, more power to her. But I think that the women who don't find that empowering should also have the ability or
the agency to do as they please. That's just how I view it.
Yeah, can I circle back to something you said earlier? So a lot of this, oh, they're bigger than us. And it's true, men on average are far bigger than women. But I don't see how that goes into like how emotional someone is or how these leadership skills that they have.
that'd be on a
If
hormonal
God,
level.
No, but if that was the case, then why did God create so many women that are excellent attorneys, excellent doctors? It's almost 50% of the field now that these women are killing business owners. Why did God give so many women, because there's so much overlap when it doesn't come to physical strength between men and women on things like how agreeable they are, if they're able to have those leadership qualities. So many women were blessed with those.
Absolutely.
Why?
Women are brilliant.
powerful.
And yeah, so women are excellent advisors and mothers and teachers and influencers, right? We know about that. Women are great influencers. They're the most powerful influencers. So I'm not in any way saying that women aren't capable. I'm just saying, should we go out and compete with men, or should we actually take our power and harness it and use it in other ways? And in fact, some of the anti-suffragettes held this belief. They were concerned that if women achieved suffrage, that their influence would be diluted because they would be forced to go out and compete like head to head. And they would kind of just lose that status as being admired as wise counsel in society. So
like these females that are like pediatric surgeons, like some of the top in the field, you don't think they're doing as much of a service as if they were just to stay home and nurture?
Well, I think they're putting themselves at a disadvantage too, because look at the wage gap. There does exist a wage gap, even if you have a really skilled like female surgeon and a male surgeon, and it's because biologically, like they can't push and push and push themselves in the same way that a man can. So like, no, this is true.
I disagree completely. I've seen women, not only do women usually meet expectations, they exceed them in a lot of situations. And I don't think that you can say, like, there are so many women who have just been so much far greater than their male counterparts in almost,
In what?
in a lot of situations.
In school,
In
education.
school, in science, in all of these places where women are coming to the forefront and like doing their jobs and doing them well. They have not only exceeded, but they've had to work twice as hard. And
Why do they have to work twice as hard?
Because of the patriarchy, because
It's
idea.
twice as hard for them.
It's
Because
not twice as hard for them.
Our bodies, like we are built that we are constantly working. I'm working right now because my body's getting ready to ovulate, right? Whereas men don't work in that same way. Like my body is always working harder than a man's body. I will say that. We are working harder because our bodies are built to do something that a man could never do.
Do you believe that then the wife should lead the family?
No,
I think that
I agree with her that it's a partnership, like
Yeah.
that a man should never be thought of as the final decision, as that how he is suddenly able to lead and know everything and know all, and then she is just here to, I don't know, serve and sit by.
We
and
believe people
submit.
should
And
be
I
looked at as individuals and not based on their gender. So there could be areas of expertise that my partner is better equipped for, and there are areas of expertise I am better equipped for.
Right.
And to your earlier point, like, it's like women didn't have advantages for so long, and now we're seeing this shift where like boys need our help, because as soon as you let women into education, we started surpassing them, and our wages have gone up and up and up. while
Let
there's-
women into education. Could you clarify that?
No, I'm saying as soon as we started pushing for like women to get into STEM, and we started doing this push to get women educated, we not only met the same standard that men were operating at, we exceeded it. And now women are outperforming men in almost all like exams.
I don't think people should do anything. I think people can do anything. I don't think there should be any societal expectation on any person, man or woman. I think that you can go and do whatever you want, and I can go and do whatever I want. And I don't think you should tell me what I should do, and I should tell you what you should do.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is an app and website that is on a mission to raise the bar on journalism in a time of media bias and mistrust. Their team of journalists believe that unbiased news should be the standard and not just the exception. So they report down the middle with facts, delivering news without bias, filter, or spin. Plus, their Media Mist tool allows you to discover news that's being underreported or not even reported at all by different sides of mainstream media. That's why we're so happy to be partnering with Straight Arrow News. The work they're doing gives us a complete picture of the news straight from our phones and tablets with their app. Go to san.com/middleground or click the link in the description to check it out. By clicking the link, you're not just supporting this channel, you're also supporting a group of journalists that are raising the bar on news and focusing on serving you unbiased, straight facts. Thanks again to Straight Arrow News for partnering with us on this episode. Now let's get into it.
Women are happier post-feminism.
Yes.
Okay, so I think the first thing is that I think a lot of people in general are less happy now, and that could be for a multitude of reasons. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's because of feminism that women are less happy, but just because A happened before B does not mean A caused B, right? We have less communities, social media, it's easier to compare. You know, everyone says comparison is the thief of joy. And if we look back at the more like trad times, women, there was something called like housewife syndrome that people would go to, and it was because, or people would be diagnosed with, which is that they were like basically developing levels of psychosis, and they would be doing a lot of drugs. People talk a lot now about how women are so medicated. Look back at all the benzos, the coke, everything they were doing in doses that they would never prescribe today just to make it through the day. So I do think that feminism has given us so much that now women have choice and they have freedom and autonomy, and just looking at overall trends of how happy people feel, I don't think gives an accurate picture on where women are and how they would have been back then.
Yeah, I'm such a realist that, I don't know, I think happiness is such a,
yeah.
Who cares? Honestly, it's like, I think in life we're supposed to be doing harm reduction and what's sustainable, and I think what we have now is there's less harm for us because we have more agency, and then sustainability, like we get to decide what we get to do so we can be more resilient and sustain onward. So, I mean, in my mind, that's my definition of happiness, because if you're just thinking about emotions and feelings, like that's gonna come and go.
Yeah, I think that women are happier and like in more positions of like empowerment within themselves right now. But I want to like tone in on the word happier. I don't think we are anywhere near where we can be or we should be right now. So that's why I was kind of like hesitant at first, because I'm like, well, we are happier. We are definitely happier than we used to be, but are we we are still in danger in this life in many different ways, and that makes me scared as a woman, and I just don't see happiest coming anytime soon.
Happiness is a very difficult thing to measure. It's very difficult to measure. So it's like, and happiness is not necessarily the same thing as overall well-being.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's so many moving parts, so many factors that are involved. But I do think the fact that women now are not forced into a box and put in situations like financial dependence is a big risk factor for like all forms of abuse. Yeah. And so a lot of women now having the autonomy, the ability to have their own money, to be able to take care of themselves, I think puts women better off overall, being able to pursue their dreams and passions. It's really hard though to look at a society, economics, all of that, and be like, oh, are people happier now or back then? You know, it's hard.
Yeah. I think I stepped forward because I got to vote last week. That was pretty powerful. Yeah. I bought a house very young after university. That's pretty powerful. I think where I see the breakdown and where I would disagree is the introduction of contraception, abortion, this sexual revolution that really, for me, I feel like we were on the right path, right? Feminists, we have freedoms now that people didn't have. But the over-medication, I'm like, the fact and introduction of birth control, what it does to our hormones, what it does to our mental health is not better off. What abortion does to a woman mentally, physically, emotionally is not leaving women better off. So did I think that the feminists were on the right track? Yes. Did I think this free sex, I can go on and live like a man and take all the responsibility and assume all the risk? I don't actually think that left women better off. I think modern day feminism is pretty dangerous for women, in my opinion. I think the physical and mental effects that abortion has on a woman's physical body.
So you think having kids also takes a toll on the body? Like
I was
having
gonna say, I feel like not having access to that medical care that I need makes me feel less safe than having it. So I feel like currently right now, like I wanted to have a baby within the next few years. I don't feel safe right now having that because I don't have access to certain medical procedures that I think I deserve and I need.
What do you need, Ren, if you're ready to have a baby?
Women
That
around
you're
the
not
world,
available.
women around the United States are currently dying in hospitals right now because they can't have access to medical needs because doctors are too afraid to perform them.
Yeah,
due to
and I
legislation.
think
That's
your
actually
point-
not true.
No,
It is
I
true.
think your point about contraception and abortion is ignoring like several dimensions. That contraception is not just for birth control. Contraception can also be used for balancing hormones. So for example,
That's what we've been told.
I suffered from ovarian cyst that if I'm not on birth control, they will grow and you know, get out of control, cause me immense pain. Not only that, there are also medical procedures. There's medical abortion that is necessary in order to preserve the life of the mother who is existing in the world right now and housing the child. But not only that, I just kind of want to go back a little bit further to some of what you were saying about women, you know, why you disagree with it, which I love hearing your perspective, and I think that it's valid and it's interesting to hear your point of view. But I think that if you, going back to happiness per se, pre and post feminism, take, for example, there's so many women who I hear who will go back and, you know, look at their grandmother, their great grandmother who was around in like, say, like the 40s, 50s, or before, and they'll see, okay, well, my grandparents, they're 20 years apart. My grandmother was married at 14 years old and had 12 kids. I'm raising a teenager, and if I think, I have a boy, but if I had a daughter at 14 years old, the idea and like the notion of marrying her off, this is again pre-feminism, right? Marrying her off for whatever reasons or purposes, and then having her at the mercy of a grown man to birth infinite children, that to me does not sound like a very happy or fulfilling life versus a 14-year-old girl who is in the NASA space program or who wants to become an attorney or wants to do whatever she wants in life. I think that based on the metric of happiness, that's a pretty unequal amount of agency and fulfillment that we're seeing for those two. Now, I only mention like child marriage because pre-feminism, did you ever see instances of little boys at 12 years old being married off? No, that's not a thing. Why? Because women are biologically, there are biological differences and there are equity differences, which is why feminism is necessary to create safety so that we can just have an option, you know? And again, if you want to have all the babies and be the childbearing domestic, you know, partner to your husband, that's totally fine. But for the little girl who wants to be a doctor when she grows up and doesn't necessarily want to play with dolls or doesn't necessarily want to, you know, just be a nurturer or just be within the home, I think that she should have the ability to.
I mean, look at how different all of us are. Imagine all of us being forced to do the same thing and be the same person. We're so different. Just because we're women, like you said, doesn't mean we're the same. And I think choice does help with people being able to live lives conducive to their happiness, whatever that looks like. And it's not going to look the same for everybody.
Yeah, and then also too, going back again to contraception and abortion, obviously Roe v. Wade was overturned, right? So there's degrees that we're seeing among the states where in certain states there was a little girl in Ohio who was and she was forced to either cross state lines or bear and birth a child. As a woman who's given birth, I personally haven't. My children that I'm raising are not my biological kids. But as a woman who has given birth, can you imagine the mental and physical toil that must take on a child who shouldn't have to endure such things? And to me, that again is something that feminism is seeking to kind of dismantle and protect is the need for women to feel unsafe in the world. That's something that's the result of the patriarchy. So when we're talking about abortion, it's not just about free love and having as much sex as we want. It's quite simply about our safety and our ability to show up and live the life that on our own terms, because as women, we can't just go around and inject our seed wherever we want, right? Men can, literally. But if a woman is raped or violated or assaulted, then what are her options? Is she forced to carry the child of her assaulter, of her? And if so, do you think that would make a good father to such a child? I don't think so.
So would you say that abortion through all 40 plus weeks do you want access to that?
I personally, I don't think that I think that I think it's all contextual, truly. And I don't think that, as human beings, I don't think that we have quite yet scientifically figured out where that line of life begins, where that line of viability.
Would you be okay with that?
Would I personally? No, that's not something that I personally would choose for myself.
No woman wants to go through pregnancy and then get it out of me. You know,
I don't.
No woman wants,
but it
like,
happens.
No, not electively.
Is that
third trimester abortions are very much only in cases of emergency and specific situations such as
viability.
There are still 8 states and Washington, D.C. where you can get an abortion at any gestational
for
age.
Emergencies, because there's
but it's not
such
happening because of emergency.
Abortion is an umbrella term.
What percentage of late term, like 9-month abortions are happening because the mom decided at 9 months they don't want it anymore?
That doesn't matter. If it's still
it does matter because
she can go in and say that this child is going to cause me mental health risks. That can be medically necessary for the
that's
mom.
happening.
Even if it's not happening all the time, let's say it happens to one woman, is that okay?
No, but that's
40,
so I don't.
40 plus weeks.
It's also
in
not okay
pregnancy.
for that. So I don't like to usually talk about like the exceptions of like or not because those are so much of the outskirts.
We don't
right?
have to talk about
most
Let's
of the
just say if
abortions.
it happens one
most
time.
of the abortions happen very early on in the pregnancy. So to go to the extreme and say like, oh, at 9 months, and it's not happening. Women are not choosing.
So are you not comfortable saying?
No, think
abortion
abortion.
at 41 weeks.
I think it should be outlawed except for in cases of health, when there's a health risk to the mother. I agree with you. I'm on board with you, but I just don't think that turning the topic into this thing that really isn't happening unless typically it's something that's emergency cases.
There's never an emergency to murder a child.
Nobody's going in there and saying, hey, murder my child. People are going in there because there is something that is happening to them.
What is happening?
Anything. It can be if they can be told by a doctor that if you birth this baby, there is a huge risk to your life right now.
That is not real.
So what's more real is that women at 9 months are walking in like,
that is
you know what, my mental health, and just, you think that's happening more often?
I think that is happening.
Okay, so, but what about...
When is it medically necessary to abort the child?
When my life is in danger.
What is happening?
There are plenty of women that go through
How many women died of childbirth before we had
There's so many medical
without
emergencies.
a C-section, an emergency C-section, or an abortion is the only answer.
Do you not believe that
I
the
disagree.
maternal mortality rate
That's what I was
exists?
gonna say.
Like,
That's
do you
what I was
just
gonna
think that?
say.
Is it just
like as Black women, we die 3 times the rate of any other group of women in childbirth as a result of birthing children. That's a systemic issue, but also for you to say that, oh, there's never any medically necessary reason for abortion, that's just blatantly wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
There's literally
I'm happy to get you guys information.
But do you not think that it exists? Do you think it's just?
I think women, can die of childbirth for sure. I
and do you
totally
not
agree
think
with
that an abortion would save that mother's life?
I do not agree with that.
Okay, so if
So you
a
think
baby
there's
dies,
no cases? The same question you asked me. You think there's no cases of a woman in late-term pregnancy who actually needs an abortion in order to? That's just never happened.
I don't think she wants the mom to survive. She doesn't care if the mom survives.
Can I ask
I
you
do care if
something?
the mom survives.
No,
I think
just
the
asked
fact
you.
that we can deliver a baby via an emergency C-section. My friend had her baby in 3 minutes. They can deliver
I understand.
a child.
My mom had a C-section with all 3 of her kids.
So when is the mother's
We get
health
that.
ever at risk? That 3 minutes they can't take out a baby, but instead they have to dismember it?
That's not what
happens.
happens.
Do you know how late-term abortions happen?
Yeah, okay. Most women at 40
Do you
weeks
know
actually
partial
deliver their
birth
dead
abortion
babies.
is how you have to deliver?
Can I
That's
ask
another
you,
thing,
do you know
yeah,
what
at
a
40
D-
weeks,
do you know
most
what a
women have to deliver
DNC
even
is, like
after
a dilation curettage? Because if a baby dies in utero, say at 39 weeks, do you know how they're going to get it out?
Yeah, a
deliver
DNC. That is not an abortion.
There are.
The
Do
child
you know
is
that in the
miscarried.
states? Do you know that in the states
it is
that
not
have
forcibly
the more
ending
strict,
that
robust,
heartbeat.
that doctors are afraid to even perform DNCs because they feel that they're going to.
That is a total mainstream misinformation.
Okay. Okay.
All right. We can ask the disagreeers to step forward.
I got a little heated. I want to touch back on the prompt of women being happier. I think that statistically women are more stressed now than they were prior to feminism. And statistics show that the higher a woman experiences stress, the more likely she is to be anxious and depressed. So I'm coming from this from like a basic standpoint of the facts are women are more stressed than they were prior because they're still expected to be a mom, be a wife, cook, clean, and take care of the house. And on top of that, it's great that women could go and be lawyers and be doctors, like that is amazing, but it's not to deny the fact that there are still women who are expected to have a societal standard of being a wife and mom and also go to work.
So why is that?
We're trying to break that.
We don't want the expectation.
Why
But
is
that's
that?
so you guys think that it should only be one or the other. Like, would you agree that it's unfair to put it on a woman to be a full-time home manager? And you said you like to manage your home. I would agree. It's a management position for sure. We're great at that. So would it be fair to put both of those things on her, a full-time home manager and a full-time career woman?
Well, I think that's a result of society and a result of the patriarchy and a result of the times that we're occupying right now.
But then you want the man to do it.
No, there's so many men that are so wonderful at both managing, just like women, are both managing a job and coming home and managing the home with us. If it is a if it is a true 50-50 relationship, we are both putting that effort in. We are both working because it is a job for both of us, not just me.
And also, women were working for most of most of the 19th century, and look at most of all of our history, European history, women were working and doing that anyway. So I don't know if this added stress, I don't know where that data exactly is from or if it's accurate, but if it's accurate, I don't think that can necessarily be the reason because look at the lives. I was literally just in New York visiting the Tenement Museum, which is like a museum about women in the early, like immigrant women early on, and these women, like working at Starbucks or any of these places are way easier. These women without like carrying buckets of water up, like even the weight of their household appliances, it was heavy. It was a lot of work. And a lot of times the men ran off. They literally had a gallery of missing husbands. These women were extremely stressed. Women were working very, very hard for most of human history. This trad movement is actually a very small blip of human history for very few women. A lot of women were even working in the 1950s and 1960s as well. So a lot of the trad wife movement, it's like if you just went even more trad, you would be back working. So it's just an interesting.
But I would agree with you there a little bit because actually we're made for work. As human beings, we need purpose, we need work. And so I don't think any of us are denying that we work in our home or in our creative pursuits. Women are built for that, to be creative, to be managerial. We're just so great at those types of things. So none of us are denying. I think there's a stereotype, like a caricature of the 50s housewife with curlers and she just sits there, right? And she's just waiting for him to come home. And she's essentially like a play toy. I don't think any of us would hold that position, so maybe we can take that off the table. But
is that because you find empowerment through occupying your role within the house, right? So again, true feminism is about creating that agency, that ability to choose. So if women were happier pre-feminism, as you're saying, my question to you is, why do you think that is? Do you think that's because they were actually happy or because they didn't have a choice but to be happy and present in their lives because they had no way out of their marriage, they had no agency or ability to choose what the path of their life would be because of the societal expectations, or because they had gotten their little lobotomy and they were like all meted out, like you said, like, prior to, because that was the only way for them to be able to stomach their lives.
Or maybe they were actually just genuinely happy.
Maybe they could have been, but but was that the norm or was that like
no, that was the norm. 96% of women voted against suffrage. 96%. It was a fringe idea that was pushed onto
Which women though?
via the media.
Which women though?
American women.
American or?
American women.
Or
American citizens.
American or?
American women. No. American
I think
women.
there's a
So you're
C.S.
saying that black
Lewis
women
quote.
want to be pushed into the workforce?
We've
I'm
been in
saying
the
that
work.
black,
I'm
saying that
the
black women are at
Tradwives
the
movement was
forefront
happening.
of the feminist movement, and that's the thing that
Right,
kind of
and
is missing
creating
from
this state
conversation.
entitlement program where we, reward the breakup of the family with all of these entitlement programs, it's harmed black families the most. Actually, if you look back, black families were doing better than white families as far as their marriages were more intact post-slavery,
but
right?
what happened?
Dad was home.
Dad was home.
Dad was home. It's fatherless homes. We have incentivized that. The same people who were the
We
slave
have.
owners.
What do you guys think of, there's a good amount, there's a lot of studies out there that show actually happiness decreases and marital satisfaction when you have kids. And sometimes there's also studies that show these dual income, no kids, that they're really happy. What do you guys think of that?
I'd like to see those studies.
There's, you could look at the Institute of Family Studies is a good.
6 years ago, I would have been sitting with you guys. I think in university, was fed this boss babe, you can have it all, you can do it all, go out, make as much money as you can, do everything for yourself, be lonely, medicated. It's like there was this this lie, I think, that if you stay at home and raise the next generation, somehow you are part of the patriarchy.
Who told
But
you?
going to a job, I worked in tech sales and was there 60 plus hours a week making some dude's pockets richer. I'm like, how is that? I am finding more fulfillment being at home with my children, creating a place that is emotionally stable for them, that they can feel these freedoms and grow than I ever did when that commission check hit or when those bonuses were given to me.
A woman taking care of her entire family, a person taking care of her entire family, their entire family, is so empowered. That is the best and most difficult job you can do. You are raising a family, you are taking care of a household, you are literally creating the next generation of people. That is one of the most important jobs in our country. In the world.
Totally.
Like I totally agree with you. So as a feminist saying that, I don't believe you when you say that you've heard feminists say that you're adding to the patriarchy if you want to stay at home. I have never heard a feminist say that because
Have you guys read quotes from actual, feminist philosophers like Simone de Beauvoir?
I think that feminists
Margaret
fought
Sanger.
for the ability for women to get out of the situations that they were in. I don't think that they were saying you doing this, you choosing to do this is adding to the patriarchy. I think the patriarchy is telling you should do this.
I'll say though that it's also, I don't know if we're going to get into this in a later topic, it is risky to decide to put all of your financial dependence and your livelihood on another person.
Well,
That
what
is
do
a
you-
risk. So
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get into that later, but I
Yes,
just want to say
I would say love is risky. It is.
But what
But
would
it's
you,
worth it though.
if
Of course,
feminists
but
are sitting here
there's ways to
saying
do
that it's risky and what is a woman going to do if her husband dies or if he leaves her, what are men going to think of us if we can't stand up? My husband leaves me. I can't stand up, get up, be strong enough to go out, get a job, provide for my
Probably
kids.
much harder.
Hard. I think it's just going to be hard when you haven't you don't have a resume. You don't have
and now you have these kids that you're in
bank
charge
This
account.
is
You have to
or a
see
big
your
result
account,
of
like-
individualism because, we're post-Christian society. In a Christian society, there's such a thing as duty. And it would be considered absolutely shameful for any upright man to see any woman be on the down and out because her husband left her or died and not step in and take care of her. I've been in several different kinds of churches, trying to find out, different things about Christianity in my adult life. And they all have many different beliefs. But one thing that I've seen in common is that people will just write checks, no questions asked when they see a mother come in with children. No questions asked, just what does she need? She need a place to
there are
stay?
many
How long is that
stories.
care gonna be
And there are
for?
many stories where it's not that
Well, it
rosy.
depends if we keep deferring to the state, not for long.
Yeah, but-
because that's our church now. And what kind
I
of
think
job
we're
are
still
they doing?
veering
I
away
mean,
from the actual topic at hand. I just feel as though from when I'm listening to your perspectives, which I deeply respect, I think the thing that I can't help but notice is that the counter argument to feminism usually takes a standpoint from a very privileged, very Western viewpoint that ignores the rest of the world and the situations and realities that women face in the rest of the world. So it's not it's almost like there's a very surface level viewpoint of feminism that ignores how actually dire and vital the work that women who are at the forefront of feminism is doing. And earlier, I think I believe it was you who mentioned that feminism puts women in danger because we're trying to breach into the same spaces as men. But personally, I feel as though when you're dismantling extremely rigid, extremely oppressive systems that have existed for thousands of years, it's going to be a dangerous job. You know what I mean?
Do you
And
have
so-
a constitutional right that a man doesn't have?
No, I think that the Constitution. I think that Thomas Jefferson. He said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, but women were not even a part of the conversation back then. And so I think that when we're talking about topics like this, we have to really look at the bigger picture and the deeper level of what feminism is actually trying to accomplish, which is not just about, pussy hats and black dresses at the Oscars and being a boss babe and all this other stuff that's very Western and very privileged to think about. It's about safety and equity and agency that is not available to, say, for example, a young girl in Western Africa who got her genitals mutilated because she was born in the wrong village. And that's what they're told to do before they're married off at the age of 11 to their husband. That, again, is not something that men experience.
In most circumstances, a married woman must not seek a divorce.
What was it?
In most circumstances. Yeah, I mean, I think that in most circumstances, of course, excusing the abusive relationships, most women should not get a divorce. I think that society now has made it too easy for women to walk away from a committed relationship. I think that if you are having a hard time in your relationship, you should seek to fix it and not just leave it behind when you've spent years or decades or however long you've been together, to just say, okay, now on to the next. I think that you should, as a Christian woman, I don't believe in divorce. I think that no matter how difficult your relationship gets, you should always fight for that person, because at the end of the day, you chose to marry that person because you love them with all your heart, and you can't just leave that person behind and say, okay, bye, because I think that that means that you never truly love that person.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think to say that there is no case in which a woman should seek a divorce, I think is wrong. But I vowed to my husband through the good and the bad. And I think that there's a level of commitment that comes that is not frivolous. It's not to be taken lightly. I think it's something that is held precious and sacred and should be fought for. I think, I find it really sad how cheap marriage has become, where it's something that can be kind of thrown around and finished and ended at a whim of dislike or distrust. Marriage is not easy. It takes work. Being in any relationship takes work. And that comes through commitment, trust, communication.
I agree. I think when we say for better, for worse, we mean it. And again, not talking about the abuse cases. I think that also our society is so focused on, well, if it doesn't make you happy, get rid of it. Get rid of anything that doesn't make you happy. You do you. Oh, your husband did this. Oh, just divorce him, leave him. And then I also feel like women, especially in our society, are being pushed more towards being valued through what other men think, and put your body out there so that everyone can see you, because that's going to create the happiness inside of you, and your husband is just kind of keeping you down. He's oppressing you, and I think that hurts. I think that the porn industry is hurting marriages the most, and I think that both men and women should value their marriage together, that it is a sacred bond.
We have to disagree, a step forward.
I grew up in a Christian household, but every single one of my aunts and uncles got divorced. So I think prescribing Christianity as the savior to marriages is just a silly belief. And then we all know that in this society, everything has been really disposable, and I don't think anyone would be advocating for that. But I think it's just disingenuous to believe that there aren't women, a lot, I feel like the majority of women really, really, really trying to make marriages work.
Yeah, why are we blaming women?
And
for
nobody
it?
wants
I don't think
to
we
go.
are.
No, I don't think we are.
So I don't think we just buy divorces off the shelves at Walmart. I think a divorce is one of the worst things that any married person could ever go through, and
It's
nobody
shameful still in
wants
this
that.
society.
100%, and also
Expensive.
too. But even having the option to divorce is something that is the result of the work of feminists. You realize that, right? So for the woman who's being
No fault divorce. Let's correct that.
Sure. Okay.
Right.
Whatever. So for the woman who's
That's a
being
big
battered
difference.
by her husband, for the woman who's being battered by her husband,
That would be a fault divorce.
100 years ago, she has no fail-safe for her life, for her safety, and for her agency. So now, at the very least, women are able to initiate a divorce if they see their partner as someone who they no longer want to be with for any reason. And I think that, again, for me, it's all about whatever the woman's choice or the person's choice is, that's between them and themselves and their partner. And I don't think that divorce should be prescribed or deduced to something that's just done left and right because women now have the ability to. We do know that statistically women are the ones who initiate majority of divorces, and that's, in my opinion, that's just simply because men will just stay in a toxic or an unfit situation rather than actually remedying it, and women will actually take charge and leave if they need to, or if they feel that's the option to. So
yeah, also a lot of times they need to do that because the men left them high and dry and they have no income, and they need to get those court proceedings going so that they can take care of their.
So we need to bring shame back to men who do that, and that's what we had 100 years ago. A man who up and ran off from his wife. This was scandalous. The church, the community, the extended family just wrapped her up and took those children in because we used to believe in duty to those around us.
That's what I was just telling you. That got me. No, they didn't. These women then had to try to pick up. They had to try to like figure out what skills they could have because they had 4 children. And yes, you could go to the church, but those resources were finite. And if you had 4 children, they had literally a gallery of missing husbands because there would be so many men who would pick up, go to work, and never come back.
And that shame was not just at the expense of the man. It was at the woman who was left too.
Outside of cases of like abuse, but like even cases like infidelity, all that, you guys think you should still stick it out with your
Depends on the context. What kind of infidelity we're talking about here? Like something severely deranged that you can't be around this person or have your children around them, then no, for your safety, you need to seek a civil divorce. But if it's something that you think could be worked through, then you need to work with, you know.
So if he sleeps with another woman, but there's no threat to your you think you should. You think you should. You ought to try to work that out.
So in the Catholic context, you should. You should. There might be a warrant for like separation, maybe even indefinite. Like it's the, to what extent? To what extent was this going on, right?
If your husband's cheating on you and he comes back and he's like, I messed up, I'm sorry, then I think that there's means to work it out. If he's not sorry, if he's like, oh yeah, I cheated on you, but he's gonna continue to do it, no.
But what about for the woman who draws the line at just one single time? If you, if I have a line.
The church's stance is infidelity. So if it's
we're
one
not all
time,
going under the church's stance.
But for us,
like
you asked our question.
Before
so
no fault divorce, you would have been able to get a divorce.
You would be able to.
But no, you need to prove it though, and that can be very, very, very difficult. So that's the problem.
But can it, or you just need one witness for a
right?
No, it was very difficult sometimes to get that proof. Or what if?
Okay, when are we talking about?
What if he's just an asshole? What if he's a asshole? Then what?
What if he just crosses any barrier?
What if I draw my line at respect?
Yeah,
just general
define respect.
Oh, okay.
He's rude. He's cold. He's not a good partner.
I just
and you're unhappy. What if you were just
So it's about happiness. So
no, because he's an asshole.
But I thought earlier in the last prompt we said happiness is fickle, right?
Yeah, but I'm
about
saying
personal
he's
boundaries.
making you. You have a direct
I think it's about
cause.
personal boundaries.
You should agree on those before you get married. Those personal boundaries, like if X, Y, Z happens.
A lot of people agree to things, and then later they'll agree, oh, we're going to work it out.
It's called going back on your word, and this is a legal contract, and when you go back on your word, there are consequences.
So if he promised you not to be an asshole, but then he's an asshole, can you divorce him?
Well, what about when you are?
Yeah, I think you should divorce me. You should definitely.
And you think that's okay? That it should just break apart just like
if I'm a bad partner, even if I'm a great partner, if he's not happy, I don't want him with me.
So then better for worse means nothing.
Well, I'm not saying that at my wedding.
Are you married?
No, I don't. But this is the thing. But that guy that I'm an OnlyFans star, so I know you were talking about porn. And like the guy who literally, my partner who films all my content, he was married to a Tradwife, like the sweetest woman, literally keeps the Sabbath. And he's like, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with someone who's just submissive. I want to be with someone who's more my equal. So now he ran off with me and he's filming my OnlyFans content and he does financially support her. But if I were to say, hey, I'll be with you, but I kind of don't want you to financially support her anymore, she would not have that anymore. And I wouldn't do that. But so imagine being
you're
a woman.
the oppressor. You
no,
just oppress that woman
but I'm
and
not.
the children.
First of all, I
she's
said,
not.
but how horrible of a position are you putting yourself in life where now your ability to financially support yourself is not only dependent on a man, but it's also dependent on
Can that poor woman that you pretty much took her husband?
No. He left her on his own because he was unhappy. And then 10 years later, he met me.
Okay. So do you not think she can get back up on her feet?
It's very, very difficult because she has given her entire life into raising their son.
I've given my life into raising my kids.
I agree with you. I think she should get up and work.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go work. I feel like you guys, and I guess I don't know. You can tell me. It feels like what you're saying is someone who's financially dependent on their husband. If he leaves, if he dies, they're just screwed. They're done.
No.
It is.
No, I
that's
think-
what you're
true,
portraying.
But the whole.
think you're misinterpreting
yes.
again.
Yeah.
You need to have something to fall back on. So be educated. Also, maternal education is one of the biggest predictors of childhood success. Be educated. Have skills.
But how do you know that they're not?
My goal for coming here was to tell young women that are like young that instead of growing up saying I want to just be a homemaker, I develop other skills. Have an education to fall back on. Have a plan, because nobody gets up on the altar and vows to be together forever and expects to be divorced.
I would agree with you.
So-
I have a degree.
Right, that's
for
awesome.
many years, was actually the breadwinner in our relationship. I made way more money. He worked for a nonprofit. Like, it was, so I think I would agree with you in the sense that young women, you are powerful. You can make an amazing decision. I could have continued on, got my doctorate, become a family and child psychologist, sat with children who are dealing with this mental health crisis right now. Instead, I'm choosing to be at home.
Yeah, that's great.
It is- it is a
great.
choice.
But I
It's
hope
super
that you're
empowering.
ready so that if something happens, you are able to take care of yourself and your child without him.
My impression of what you guys are here, it's not to force anything upon anyone. My impression is that your viewpoints are myopic, and that it is more your viewing. It's like you have this very singular, one-dimensional view of, well, this is how I live my life, so other women should live that life too. But I think that true feminism is intersectional and it is all-encompassing, so it affects so many different facets of our lives and of our experience as we navigate the world. It even impacts the way that men move through the world, because true feminism, dismantling the patriarchy, men benefit from that too, because there's less pressure on them. Yes, they do. And I just feel as though that like singular, like very closed view of what feminists are actually fighting for is discounting and taking away from the very, very real work that is creating space for all of us and for everyone, regardless of what individual, whether you're a married woman or not. Because yes, we're talking about married women specifically, but what about all the other women that don't want to get married or don't find empowerment through being a mother or being a wife? They should have an ability to just do whatever they want to do. That's what we're fighting for.
There is no shame in having a high body count.
Well, there's no shame for men, so why should the shame fall on the woman if she is occupying that space?
Right. I just don't think we should shame like things as trivial as sex. Like everybody does it. Like you can say like, oh, she has a high body count versus like I have sex with my boyfriend like every day. Like I just don't feel the difference there. Like, so what if it's different men? So like as long as you're being safe, as long as you're being like anybody should be able to just have sex with someone if consensual sex.
Yeah.
So I think interestingly, I think this is what's moral and what's healthy may be different for different people. So there's something called sociosexuality, which is just like there's like a test you can literally take about how likely you are to engage in casual relationships depending on your attitudes, your preferences, etc. And while it's true that men tend to score higher in it, some women do score high in it. And for those women, it is a very healthy, wonderful thing to do. But I also think that we've been shamed so much and been called so many derogatory terms that I think some women feel like, okay, I need to fight back from this and I need to go and, engage in hookup culture, and that may not be right for a lot of women, and it's not right for me, so I don't personally engage in it. And I do think that, again, what's healthy may not be the same thing as what's moral, and I think those two things get convoluted a lot in this topic.
I completely agree.
All right. Can the disagreeer step forward?
I think that I can acknowledge that not everybody is going to be Christian and hold the same values that I, as a Christian woman, do. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18, I believe it is, being sexually immoral and promiscuity is frowned upon and it is a sin. So I think that anybody, man or woman, should feel shame for being promiscuous. It's not something that any Christian should accept. Like I said, I acknowledge that not everyone is Christian, so if you have a different belief on that, that's going to be an agree to disagree. I'm not going to try to fight someone who is like a free spirit and they're going to go do whatever they want. I acknowledge that some women and men are going to continue to do that, but I think that promiscuity leads to women being unhappy in more relationships. So there's studies that show the more men women have sex with, the less likely they'll be happy in the next relationship. And I think that we need to get back to finding a partner and being happy and, repairing the nuclear family in society. I think that's what's going to help society move forward.
Yeah, but what if we just didn't shame people for how they live their lives?
I think shame is very important, and we should shame people.
I think we should shame people for things like that are actually bad, like murder
right.
and sexual assault. But,
But 100 years ago, this fornication was considered very bad.
right,
So
and then we progressed
Again,
and we
for who?
realized
So
that
you would call
men
that
or women?
progress to sleep around?
I wouldn't say sleep as using terms like sleep around, sexual promiscuity.
What would you, I guess,
Well,
what would you call
high
it?
body count,
Yeah.
you're sleeping with lots of people.
Yeah.
So
No, it is
What
freedom
is
to
that
not be
outside of-
shamed or have a scarlet letter or like be able to do OnlyFans like what I do. I think
But
that
it's
is
shameful.
progress.
You want to let society know, hey, this person does this. And so if you connect your life and bond with this person, there's a huge risk that they're going to do this to you.
So people who don't share your worldview, though, like you said, there are people like me. I don't believe I'm an atheist. So should you shame me based on your worldview?
I think you should shame yourself.
No,
I
but-
don't think that it's on anybody to shame another person. Like, I'm not going to go around shaming anybody because they have a high body count. I think that we need to instill shame back into ourselves and realize where we go wrong. And if you, like I said, if you don't feel shame, like that's completely on you and that's up to you. But if, like how I would see myself as someone who doesn't have a high body count, I have one, it's my husband, then I don't have shame on myself for that reason. But like that's me coming from a Christian point of view.
And more power to you, going back to the myopic thing that we were talking about earlier. So more power to you if that's how you find your empowerment, that's fine. But for the woman who doesn't necessarily occupy your world and your space, then do you not think that she should be free to do whatever
I think she can, I
live
said
her
it
life
already,
as she
like
should,
I think you can completely feel however you want to feel about yourself. I don't think that that's on somebody else to shame, like that's not a Christian.
Right, because it's not biblical.
So I think
One-on-one,
for
it's
me,
one-on-one, it's not biblical, but societal it is. We need to enforce shame like pedophilia, right? That has got to be shamed. Can we all agree? Right?
Yeah.
So there
Like
needs
I
to
said,
be
bad things.
a line for societal shame.
I think just looking at the emotion of shame. What does shame do to us? Shame says, I did something bad. Why? Because it can course correct, because it can change the way that we're living. I think regardless of religious beliefs or whatever that is, shame is an emotion everyone feels.
Right.
Throughout the day, all different kinds. Shame because I cut someone off, whatever. I did something that was wrong that I don't want to do again.
Okay.
Why? Because shame's uncomfortable.
Right.
We don't want to feel shame. We don't want to put shame on people. But I actually think shame is a great emotion.
Great.
Shame keeps us safe and keeps you from making the same mistakes again and again.
Great, and we sure, and I think that society should shame people like pedophiles, sexual offenders, murderers, because these are things that pretty much everyone in a society can agree that's a bad thing.
For now, what about abortion? And what about people in the LGBTQ community talking about minor attracted persons? We're moving the Overton window, and it started by destigmatizing fornication.
I think. So you think 100 years ago things were better?
I do. These issues existed on the
when there
fringe,
was
and when they
slavery?
happened,
Well, actually, that was 200 now, but
yeah, we can
still.
all condemn that.
But like,
that's a separate issue that we should
yeah,
condemn.
but it wasn't
But you're
better.
bringing in
Making it
separate
okay.
Yeah,
issues.
I meant with this, but I think the disagreement here is you guys think we all agree with something that's wrong or something you believe is wrong, depending on your moral philosophy, you should be shamed. But I think the discrepancy is we don't agree this is wrong, and if all you're going to throw at us is Christianity,
So if men can have a high body count, so should women? I'm
No,
like, again,
I
we're
think that
trying
should
to
lower
make
ourselves.
ourselves
I think
like
both
men.
Sex isn't wrong.
That's
Sex
so
is not
weird.
wrong.
So you guys have
We
to
don't think so
convince
either.
us that
We
it's
think it's the
It's
most
beautiful.
powerful thing
It's
in the world. That's why
amazing.
you have to have standards because of the power. Like I would imagine you ladies don't like Donald Trump, so he was made by two people having sex. That's pretty powerful that one person is in the
sex
world
rocks.
because two people had sex, right?
Yeah, 100%.
This thing is like a nuclear reactor. Sex. It can create one person that can do things, big things, and it has to be taken seriously on a societal
I
level.
think
serious. Yeah.
There's an objective truth. And I think there's one objective truth, and whether you believe it or not, it's God's truth. And whether you're aligned with it or not, that's up to you.
But that's your subjective belief,
no,
that thought.
There's one objective truth, and from that truth, disorder comes. So we go off, we have sex with multiple people, disorder follows. When we are disobedient to God's design to the objective truth, disorder follows. We have people getting pregnant that they don't want to be. Now we have families breaking up. We have 52% of relationship divorces saying that porn was an issue. Sex creates all this disorder and dysfunction in our society. And the problem is that we look at it and we say, oh, it's fine. We should tolerate that. We should be okay with that. And that's not okay. We're going against the natural law, the natural order. There is peace when we have two people come together in marriage and are united together as one flesh. We have peace with that because it's with God's design.
And that is your subjective
But what?
belief.
because I don't feel
But there
peace
is
with that.
there
are
is
people
disorder.
who will not agree
you
with
don't
that.
go and have
I
sex with a
will-
bunch of people and you feel shame. You feel bad. There's
Yeah,
a
I
reason.
agree. Feel safe,
There's
though.
a
Abortion?
I don't feel any shame for doing OnlyFans. So what are you going to use? So convince
That's because
me.
your conscience is hardened, and that is the voice inside of us that when we go past it, and we keep going past it, it's like taking a hot iron to the conscience, and you can no longer feel. This is why people who view porn, they seek out more intense types of porn, over the years, to where the basic vanilla stuff isn't doing it anymore. They have to seek out violent porn. You can go look it up. I mean, there are statistics.
I think that women seek out violent porn more than men.
Right. I would say it's affecting women too.
No. I think that there are women who are just into different things, BDSM, etc.
But
Do you
why?
think something
It's
happens?
because-
Do you think
No,
something's
it's
wrong
because
with
the
them?
very
Yes,
nature
I
of
do.
pornography
Yes,
itself,
something happened to them.
The very nature of pornography itself is built and rooted within the patriarchy, which is a violent system. So the reason for that is that pornography itself, the reason why it's so uncomfortable, the reason why it disrupts marriages is because pornography, as we consume it and create it within a society, it is the result, it was born of violence.
So we should ban it, right?
But no, we should create empowerment and safety within it so that women can.
There is no safety. There's sex trafficking. There's exploitation
there
of
is.
women and
There
children.
is, and again,
we can't
those-
allow
those-
that. That's
But
not okay.
consensual sex work is very different from trafficking.
You don't
and
think
child
that those people are
exploitation.
being trafficked?
No, I think
there are
for
a lot of
OnlyFans, for
them-
instance, I have to put in my government ID. I have to pay taxes.
Right, and so
There's
what
no
we want you to do
children
is
there.
we want you to take this off of Main Street and into the back alley where it should be, so that our children and our spouses
Don't
and the
see
general
it.
public doesn't have to see it, because
But
it's
guess
shameful.
what? They're
But you have
going
to-
to
You have to go.
I
It's
have to-
behind a paywall.
Growing up in a Christian household, I still think that sex is very intimate, and I think that I feel shame thinking about it, and I know a lot of my friends feel shame, and so I know that I think it's just disingenuous to think that there's no negative effects when there comes with a lot of sex.
Yeah, that's why I said it may not be healthy.
Yeah.
But with their world, we were saying you should feel shame, and I go, okay, why? Because I don't, and they go, oh, it's because your heart is hardened, or because you're
No,
not
I
falling
think that's
into
a crazy thing to
Christianity.
say. That's a crazy thing to
Because
say.
you're not believing. I just don't. I don't find Christianity convincing. So is there any
Well, you
other
don't have to be a
reason?
Christian. You can be, a virtuous person of any conviction to believe in these things because they're revealed by nature.
Have you ever felt any shame doing
For
what
doing
you did?
OnlyFans? No.
Or
Why should
before
she?
before OnlyFans?
Yeah.
What do you mean, any
There was-
shame? Yeah, I feel shame when I mistreat somebody. I feel shame if I'm dishonest in a situation. I feel shame if I'm being a bad friend.
And what does
I
that
don't
shame
feel
move
shame.
you to do?
Be a better friend. But I
Okay.
don't feel shame by taking my body and doing something with my body that I want, that I feel great and
That's
empowered
because
doing.
you value money more than your morals.
No, it's just my morals are not the same as your morals.
Right, but this
I would never ever violate my morals to do anything. I just don't share your morals.
Right.
That's the
And
difference.
that's fine.
This
Okay.
is what your body was. You're not honoring what your body was made for. I came to these conclusions before I was a Christian, just because I studied, mother-baby health and everything, like what the body is made for. Your body, God gave women a beautiful body. Like we have beautiful bodies to generate life, to do something men could never ever do,
superpower, for
and
sure.
that is why we're called to veil our bodies with a dignity that is higher than men, because we have life-bearing
So
vessels
you
that
think
men don't
my
have.
body is just to produce children. That's what it's
Not only, but that's the primary.
Listen, even evolutionary speaking, evolution doesn't care if you're happy or
What about women who
fulfilled or
biologically
empowered.
can't
It's
produce
yeah.
children? What about them?
Yeah, what about women who can't do it?
Exception does not make not the their rule. fault.
No. You're still built with maternal instincts and maternal. This is why
don't
women
think that's true.
seek
I don't think
caring
that's true either.
professions.
So are you saying it's shameful to not dress modestly?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's interesting, and that's your belief. That's totally
Right.
fine. But I think that shame again comes from your personal beliefs, but that it should not be baked into society, and that for the woman who is, because also too, modesty doesn't equal safety for women.
Not at all.
So if you dress modestly or if you dress more revealing, you still are at risk because of the merits of society and the structure of the patriarchy that does not respect your body or your autonomy. So if a woman biologically can't produce children, then based on what you've said so far, then she inherently does not have the same amount of value or equal. What about trans women who biologically
Well, they're
can't?
not women, they're men.
They're men.
Oh.
With a penis.
And to go back to the previous point,
I was so scared to ask him. I knew it.
to go back to the previous point you made, you said that our beliefs shouldn't be baked into society, but you're essentially saying your beliefs should then be baked into society.
No, living in a theological society.
We should.
We are not,
We're
though.
not.
I am more liberated than the other side.
When we have this ideology that we go through, and I feel like with feminism, there's all these different waves. So we have these feminists, I believe in the second wave that, one was like, yeah, we should be able to work, or if you want to stay home, you can stay home. And the other one, I need to look up their names, so I can tell you after this, but the other one said, no, women need to work. Women, if they stay home, then they're destroying everything that we've been working for. And so I feel like when we have this ideology that we're falling into of feminism, we can get lost in trying to just be part of a category, and that's with anything. And so I feel kind of just being on the outskirts, just looking at what is best for the family, what's best for kids, what's good for marriages, and just aligning with that, which I do believe is more of the Christian life, that I am more liberated in that, in the freedom of working with my husband alongside him. He's not a dictator. He loves me. He takes my schooling into account when I said I wanted to get my master's. And when we work together, and instead of going with whatever society is saying, instead of going with a certain category or group of people, we say, no, this is right, this is true, and this is what we want for our kids, and we push towards that, and we kind of take out all of these ideologies around us. I feel like we have this freedom, and so I feel like I'm more liberated, not necessarily being a feminist, because I don't feel like I have to align with all these different points and different waves, but I can still be for women. I feel like I am more free because I'm not following an ideology that has to go into certain waves or fall into these certain kind of red flag categories of, well, if I'm a feminist, do I have to be for abortion? Or now if I'm a feminist, do I have to, be for trans women?
But you follow Christianity.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that is in and of itself a way to like shape you, to make you,
Right.
you have to, so it's the same thing.
I think what stands out to me is that I think the thing that it's almost ironic is that your sense of freedom is the work of feminism itself. That freedom and empowerment that you feel occupying that role within your marriage and the way that you show up within society, that is the work that true feminism is doing. It's not trying to force any singular role upon you. It's trying to empower women to experience true liberation. It's not about equality. It's not about meeting men as equals. It's about freedom.
Right.
Being free to do and live your life however you find empowering, and then having fail-safes within society that create that freedom so that we can, that create agency so that we can experience more and more of that freedom as we progress as a society.
I think a lot of us here, we value choice. And the reason I stepped forward is I feel like with my worldview, I have more of a choice. So if I had the ideology you have, I don't think I would be as happy as I am now, right? I wouldn't be able to have the career I have now. I wouldn't be able to have the freedom I have now. I would be more forced to follow a certain thing, whereas my brand of feminism, if I wanted to get married and be at home with kids, I could. And if I wanted to be an OnlyFans star, I could. And so because of that, I feel like I was more liberated.
I just want to say something though on choices. I don't think that feminism is about choice. I think that feminism created choice.
Yeah.
Because no feminist will ever say that you can choose to see me as lesser than a man. You don't get to choose that, so it's not about choice, because I'm not lesser than a man. And that's where I say I think our side is more liberated, because how do you have liberation when there is submission? If you submit to anything, if you submit to a god, if you submit to a man, that's not liberation, that's not freedom, you are submitting to something. So that's why I believe that that my side would be more liberated in that specific thing. Now, liberation in other parts of your life, like liberation, how you feel, if you feel liberated, I do believe that you are liberated. But if you are submitting to something, that is in definition not liberation.
I feel more liberated in the sense of I am in a committed, trusting relationship. I have a partner that we have mutual understanding, negotiation. I feel some of what you're saying, I have no grid for that because I haven't experienced that in my partnership. So I'm feeling freedom in the sense of I can have great sex and I don't have to worry about birth control or abortion or any of that, where I think what I hear from a lot of feminists, and maybe not today, we didn't fully go down, but the abortion thing is really dangerous, I think. And that's where feeling like abortion has liberated women, I just can't, I can't get behind that stance.
Do you think women just like worship abortions?
Very few. That's the caricature that you would paint. I think women have been told that this is the only way to navigate an unwanted pregnancy. And what we're saying are there are more ways. So babies can, the youngest baby that's ever survived outside of the womb was 20 weeks.
Yes.
20 weeks, that means that baby's got to come out. It's got to come out, either whole or in pieces. We are saying whole. Give it a chance. If you want to put the baby up for adoption,
I think there are a very
No. I'm
few-
talking about that category because earlier you all addressed that category. Now, if we're looking at abortions before that, there are different types of abortion, but if we're talking about empowering women, mifepristone, which is used for most medical abortions, that has a black box warning. This is incredibly dangerous for women. What I'm saying is empower that woman to make the choice not to get into that position, but then if she's the 0.1% that is in that position because of rape or incest, 0.1%, then we're gonna walk by her and stop that cycle of violence and say that we're going to move forward and help you find an adoptive family and, pay all these fees, pay for your, maternity care and just support that one, that 0.1%.
What if she still doesn't want
Nowhere
the
in
pregnancy?
society.
Well, then, two wrongs don't make a right. It's not going to make it right. It's not going to
That's
undo
what I
the
was gonna
rape.
say.
It's not.
Nowhere in society is one violent act righted by another violent act.
Okay, well,
that's just not.
But
that's-
you're talking about the abortion pill being being dangerous. What about pregnancy?
There's no black box warning on pregnancy. I think that's a lie. I would be, no. I think this is where feminists miss the boat. Like, we have an opportunity here to actually talk about women's rights, and it's the maternal mortality rate in this country. It's insane. It's higher than any developed nation in the world, and that's a shame. And that's because we pathologized. We gave up our dominion over childbirth to go compete with men. Our mothers, our grandmothers, and midwives used to hold our hands through pregnancy and childbirth. We gave that up. Now we're being cared for by men and by people who don't care for us. It's dangerous. It's become overly medicalized. And pregnancy and birth are not a pathology. Yes, it is, because we left and we went out to pursue other things.
women
I
in
think,
the 50s
I
are
think
giving birth
feminism
in a
has to
home, so-
deny
Right, because
that
the 50s is-
biology of what makes us truly uniquely feminine. Our ability to carry and sustain life.
So a woman who does not have that ability then is inherently less feminine than
Or
a
doesn't
woman who
want
does.
it. Why should I have to be pregnant? I don't get it. I don't.
No, you shouldn't.
You don't have
Okay,
to
great.
be. I'm
So
saying
have
that's what
sex.
makes you uniquely feminine, different than a man.
Hold on, that's ridiculous to say don't have sex.
It's not. Many
No.
people do it.
No, there are plenty of, okay, so two people in a relationship who love each other, who want to show that beauty that is sex to each other, but don't want, the woman does not want to be pregnant. They just shouldn't have
Track
sex.
your cycle.
Exactly.
Only
That's what
5
I'm saying.
days that you can
Fertility
really get pregnant.
awareness.
Oh, great. That's fine. That's fine with me.
So
And
it
they should
requires
have access to
cycles
birth control.
is
They
the
should have access
solution.
to fertility awareness. They should have access to education. That's great.
Is that woman
But
less feminine to you?
Yes, she is, absolutely, because she's not using the power of her feminine body, saying that I know my body, and it literally cycles with the moon, and on these certain days I can do this thing no man can do, and I can control what man gets to do that with me and what life gets to come from that, and that's more powerful than
And I
anything
think-
a man could ever do.
Your views and your values are not being like dissipated because of feminism. They're still very, very robust, intense, like gender roles that we are not working to dismantle so that little girls are equal to boys. It's that for the little girl who wants to go and be a race car driver, she knows that she can.
I would argue that society is pushing traditional women out of the window, and that is, I mean, I don't really want to get too much into the topic of LGBTQ, but they're basically telling children at an extremely young age, oh, you don't have to play with dolls. We're not going to get you dolls. We're just going to have a neutral household, and you're gonna play with neutral toys, and like that is being
that's
pushed
not what
back.
we're doing. That's not what we're
Maybe
doing.
that's
also
not what
what's
you're
wrong with
doing,
that.
but that
That's
is
what
what
they
is
decide to do.
happening.
We have feminists telling us it's okay for my girls to be on the same sports team as biological males.
I'm not saying
That is freaking scary.
I don't know.
That is not
I-
okay.
I just
that
don't-
is not safe for women.
And we're tiptoeing
but
into
every single person, like people who study like gender, would disagree with you. So why do you think you're right on this?
What do you mean they would disagree with me?
Because
If a biological male
Yeah,
is
but they're
playing
not- okay.
volleyball against my daughter and smacks a volleyball in her face,
right, so
that
what
that
makes you-
doesn't keep her safe.
What makes you think that these biological men are not like biological men,
I
trans
don't
men?
like the term
trans-
biological
yeah,
male
they're-
because that's transphobic.
It's
But
very
it's denying
trans- but they
biology.
are.
What the feminist ideology is doing is trying to rewrite truth so that it's relative. It evolves. It doesn't exist.
No, it's not. It's
Trying to reflect
create
truth.
equity
So
so that
does
marginalized
biology
groups,
exist?
so that marginalized groups have higher protections in
Right.
society.
You cannot transform into the opposite sex.
And again, we are so veering, but just so that I can like get this out there, we are approaching this topic from a very Western imperialized view. In other countries and in other parts of the world, the gender norms are not as rigid as we view it in the West.
But you're discounting for how many years now have there been gender roles? Because men naturally tend to go this way, women tend to go this way. Of course there's going to be little girls who want to play with cars. There's going to be boys who play with a baby.
And those gender roles create violence for our bodies. That's what we're saying.
So
And
if a little
yes, I
girl
disagree.
plays with a car, somebody's going to hurt her? Or
No. If you're arguing for us to essentially regress a little bit, right? If you, as a Western as a woman occupying a Western capitalistic privilege standpoint, find empowerment being a wife and being a mother, and you feel as though that we in the West are moving away from those values and that is counterproductive to society, that's fine. But what I'm saying is that actually what you're really arguing for is it equals more violence in other parts of the world for a
Because
lot of
I
women.
care for my home and bake
No,
food from scratch,
no,
that's
because those
leading to
women
more
don't have
violence,
choice,
and I'm not going
because
to work.
Those natural biological differences that you're arguing for are the reason why women are reduced into those spaces and don't have a choice.
And the flip side could be said to transgender males in women prisons, and these women that are being killed and raped,
Wait, that's
what do
happening
you-
because of trans people?
because there's a man in a woman's prison.
So the women in that prison are dying?
I'm curious.
I wanna see the
really
statistics
want to
for that.
understand how you can reconcile that.
Here's-
Because
As
I
someone
believe that
who wants
trans women
Can I
are
just-
women.
wait,
That-
can I-
and you don't.
And
Like,
there's
it's-
no fear in that.
Can I just say something?
You would be okay. It locked in a cell with a
No,
transgender
can I
woman,
please say
Hell
something? Can I
yeah.
a
please-
biological man.
It's
There's
a woman
no
to me.
fear
They're a
in
woman
To my
to me.
knowledge, no one here is transgender, so I really think that there's no reason for us to be veering into these waters because we don't even have a trans person on this panel to advocate for themselves.
Exactly.
We are
I
veering
agree.
into something
It's just
else that as
inappropriate.
cisgendered females, we have no business talking about because it's not our fight, it's not our struggle, and it's not our bodies. What I'm saying is that feminism at its core is there to create more safety. So if there's something,
Agency for women.
if there's an aspect of it that is taking away from safety, then to me that's not a part. But here's the thing: we shouldn't go there because that's not what this is about, right? Okay.
I don't know what liberates you guys. You're strangers to me. But personally, based on what I've learned from the internet of Tradwives and how they really prescribe themselves next to like red pill men, which feels quite limiting and constricting to what they can actually see themselves be. Whenever I hear you guys talk, or the overarching Tradwives, you guys put yourselves in a box, it feels like, of what you are able to do and what you are able to accomplish and who you are able to listen to, when feminism, like I wouldn't even say that I don't even really prescribe myself as a feminist. I would say I'm more of a womanist. There's a lot, it's much more intersectional. There's a lot of theological roots within womanism as well. So like when you guys are talking about Jesus or God, like I don't know who you guys are talking about. Your Jesus is not who I see.
Totally.
It's so when you guys are saying like, this is gonna solve this, this is gonna solve this, it's just not. So what we're saying is that there's so many different ways to solve societal problems that do affect women, and that we need to be open to more things. And I don't feel like you guys are the ones that are open to more helpful solutions.
all of us can agree that women are very capable of going into the workforce, and we're not saying that right after high school or before high school you have to go and get married and have babies and be a homemaker.
Right.
Most, the average in the United States, women get married at the age of 29. So you have, from high school, you've got 10 years to graduate high school, go to university, get your master's, get a good career, find a husband, and decide, okay, now, and like
That's where it stops.
That's where it stops.
Yeah, stop there because then you start.
Stop there.
No, I'm saying you stop. Like if you're saying you're open to finding more ways of solutions, and then you say you can do all this, but then you have to subscribe to the nuclear family.
I didn't say that you have
I don't
to.
find a husband
husband.
believe in forced marriage.
No.
Do you know any Tradwives who would
No.
believe in forced marriage?
Whoa.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
did I say that?
I think it's like what you guys find fulfillment in, and then when you guys say, oh, well, women are more unhappy now, and then you'll say, it's because you guys aren't finding fulfillment in marriage and homemaking and all this stuff. Like, it's where your conclusions lie. That's the problem.
I think that women are extremely happy being homemakers, and I think that there are many women that are extremely happy being in the workforce, and that's totally fine if they want to be in the workforce.
But I feel like you see that as the solution.
No, I think that some women are genuinely not meant to be wives and not meant to be mothers. Like
Yeah, and that's the work of feminism again. So
yeah, first wave. I totally agree with first wave.
I guess even before first wave, forced marriage. What was that? Are we talking about, like, when was that happening? When was that a huge institution? Was the United States government?
I think pretty much for all of history up until pretty recently.
Actually, for 2,000 years, the West has been built on the Catholic Church, and from day one, it has been a mortal sin to force a marriage.
And I think that child marriage is still legal in like 20-something
So we
states.
have work to do. We need missionary work to take the church there and tell them, you can't do this. You cannot make somebody get married without
but the
consent.
church is not the be all end all. That is exactly what turns people away from the church. Like the what you are putting on us right now is exactly why people don't want to come and be in your spaces.
So if I didn't say any of this, you would want to?
I wanted to before people said that to me back when I was in the church. Like I loved being at church. It was so great to have fellowship. It was so great to have a community of people who were awesome people around me. But then whenever I get told that I'm wrong for slightly believing something else or pushed out in ways that I could never imagine by people that I thought were my friends, like that is what makes me not want to go to places like that. You coming in here and saying, well, the church is the be-all savior, and I'm saying, no, it's not.
At its core, if your beliefs or if your lifestyle is imposing upon the will of another, then you are against that liberation and that freedom. So regardless of whether you think that abortion is wrong and that women shouldn't have it, that's cool, that's what you think. But there is there's a bigger overarching societal ripple effect that comes from that, and it's also built off of theological morality views and clauses that are baked into our government and into our society that we still have not evolved or moved past yet. So feelings of shame because of how you live your life or your body count, feelings as though if you are a woman who is single or unmarried or can't biologically have children, that you are somehow less than a mother or a wife. That, to me, that's the thing that true feminism is trying to address or create equity for, that those women should be allowed to show up in the world just as powerfully and as empowered as the women who find empowerment through their own lifestyles. That's how I see it. That's how I feel. But genuinely, I hear you guys, and I respect your viewpoints. There are a lot of things that we do not see eye to eye on, and that's totally fine, because I feel as though it's about finding where that freedom and those doors and those pathways can be opened in a way that creates safety for everybody.
Yeah, I'm just happy that 8 women here are all feeling fulfilled in our own ways.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so happy that everybody's happy, because